Travel is more than just ticking off countries. It's about the people, the culture, the food, the moments. I'm Pippa Hudson, and on Wonder the World, I invite you to join me every week as we explore destinations both near and far, with the help of fellow adventurers who share their unique travel stories. Listen to my podcast wherever you get them.
702
Live
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
Six minutes after 9 o'clock, you're on 702. Thanks very much for joining us. It's Thabo instead of Clement, who would be traveling, as you would have gathered already, after a stellar performance in the US. Team 702 did us all proud. I'm sure you would join me in congratulating them on work well executed. I was obviously here in studio just to make sure that everything goes well in case the line cuts up that side. That's how we work here. But I listened to every bit of those shows that Clement did, Tsidi's reportage. I think it was so excellent. I have to agree. That was some best radio I have heard in a very long time. Clement did a fantastic job, especially on the first day when he started reporting from there. I think he broke down all necessary issues. He kept us abreast. And subjectively, you may argue that I am pouring all these confetti of congratulatory remarks upon him because he's a colleague and I would obviously be subjective to the station. No. I assure you, genuinely, I was depending on the station to know what was happening because I thought we were head and shoulders above the rest. And that is not to demean anyone, by the way, but as far as content is concerned. And I have to congratulate people also in the background who made sure that everything else goes according to plan. We often forget to do so. And so because without them, we really I cannot do what we do. Abel was running like a frantic chicken that doesn't have a head, pressing buttons, making sure that the connections are well and making sure that you get the very best quality. So I have to congratulate the team. Forgive me for their indulgence, but I thought let me just congratulate. I'm sure you agree. They did well. And the questions as well that they posed and at the Oval Office, both Tsidi screaming at the back, even though we didn't see her on TV, and Clement's questions and his screams. And it's really truly not about 702 only. It's really about South African journalism. I would want to argue that we were definitely with the best in the world, and we showed up. We represented the country appropriately, and as everyone else was interviewed on CNN and major other channels, I thought that our journalists represented us appropriately. We shouldn't only complain and send nasty remarks when there's a problem, but it's also good to note the good work that comes with this. So having said that, I've congratulated the team. Welcome. We have our own work ahead of us up until 12. I'm Thabo Shole-Mashao, and I would like to know who you are, especially on this Friday and where you're listening from. But most importantly, I want you to know that the show will continue just as it ought to. Between 9 and 10, we have an open line. And on the open line, I urge you to raise any issue. My obsession is that media doesn't cover enough of what's happening in our country. We depend on you to say, by the way, in Kelvin, there is this problem of fires every other Friday and no one is saying anything about it. Or by the way, we have this problem of traffic lights, of street lights in Krugerstop and no one is saying anything about it. Raise it. This is your opportunity to raise it where everyone else is listening. So the open line should be driven by you. But let me kick off some few thoughts of mine on the open line, and I'll invite you to call in and share yours or comment on what we have raised. Africa Day is just around the corner, right? 25 May, and we know the importance of that. I wanted to find out, very simple. I mean, we could have made it complicated, but what makes you African? What makes you African? And this is not just in a vacuum. The question of Afrikaner and African always come to being whenever we are introspecting as a nation, as South Africa. And I want us to, with a tinge of sobriety at least, dissect our definition of what it means to be African. Some people have argued that we should not have borders because of how temporary they are and how artificial they are and how they do not represent who we are and how the colonizers divided Africa amongst themselves and drew these borders. I mean, when you're looking at us and Botswana and Swaziland and Lesotho, we are literally one people, literally one people. There's no difference whatsoever among us. Nothing. We could literally be one country with Botswana, with Swaziland, with Lesotho, and I suppose others around. We could literally be one country. But what makes you African? And to stretch it a bit, are you proud to be African? And I'm not just talking about the sentiments. I'm not just talking about the past. I'm talking about Africa being the face of poverty, corruption, crime, wars, and all that is negative. And you will argue that it's the media that has painted Africa like that. Accurate or inaccurate as the picture may be, is that truly what makes us who we are? My heart sinks whenever I see children not having anything to eat on the continent. Whenever I see wars amongst ourselves. Of course, there's a third hand. We'll argue about that later, and I'm not oblivious to how foreign countries have a hand in bringing mercenaries in here and pushing for us to fight against it. But I see brother going against brother. The Hutus, the Tutsis. We've seen that in Rwanda. We've seen it. We've seen that here in South Africa. Remember, in the mid-90s, in the early 90s, I should say, just after Nelson Mandela was released from prison. You'd remember that. The townships, you literally couldn't walk in a street where there was a hostel if you're a township dweller. A lot of people are bending there. And it was brother against brother. But also, we fight so much amongst each other as Africans. I was speaking to Sinazo, one of the producers of the show earlier on, that there was a very interesting label given to English white-speaking South Africans at the time, and they were called Sotis, and that would be a term that meant that they had one foot in Europe and the other in Africa, that they didn't really represent what Africa stood for. So the Afrikaner, white Afrikaner, was more African than the English-speaking or British descendant who then took up citizenship in Africa. So that was there. So the question is still very, I suppose, very philosophical, and in finding out what who we are as Africans and what makes you African. Please share that with me. Is it the language you speak? Is it the culture that you carry? Is it your nostalgic sentiments about the continent? Is it your love and passion for this place? What truly makes you African? I can't imagine myself being anything else other than being African, with all its pains, with all its burdens that we shoulder. I feel extremely fortunate that I'm African. Maybe you see it differently. Share that with me. And this is in lieu of Africa Day on the open line.
702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
011-883-0702. Titi, you've been holding for quite some time. Let me just release you from the suspense. Welcome. What do you have to say to the rest of South Africa? Like you said?
Sharp. Just to reiterate the compliments regarding Clement and the team.
Yeah.
Clement is one guy I put up there. He's one of my top broadcasters on radio. Him and a guy called Thabo Shole-Mashao. Clement takes reportive journalism to a whole new level. And He's a young black brother, you know.
Yes.
In a radio station that was predominantly white. Obviously, it's transformed over the years, but it was predominantly white. And for the station to entrust such a big task to a young black brother, it makes me proud, Robin.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, you know, yeah, he's done very, very, very well. And compliments to 702 for making that investment.
Yeah.
Because obviously there was a lot. I mean, getting someone to travel and with the camera crew and the accommodation, etc. So it's a big investment. So yeah, big compliments to that. Yeah, I was very proud, honestly. And when you guys paid tribute to the founder of Prime Media, and that journalist guy, that veteran journalist said that I think when Mandela was released, you were one of the only radio stations that international media relied on for information, you know. So you guys carried it through. So yeah, just a compliment on my side.
No, I think. And he says he only has few words. TT, thanks for that, my brother, because I'm glad when we have these type of engagements, because at times we just complain and we are very good at criticizing individuals, and it gives me courage, and I am on his behalf. Thank you so much. I thought
back to him. He must hear it.
No, certainly, and he will definitely. I'm thrilled for him. Thanks, TT. All the best. 011-883-0702. Another matter that I thought I wanted to throw here on the open line is the concept of cluster thinking. Psychologists and philosophers have got a more formal way of approaching it, but it just merely simply refers to the fact that, especially in South Africa, that we use a binary way of looking at things. So just because, as an example, someone is a DA member, we automatically assume that they would not care about the plight of the poor, right? And if you were a member of the DA and you wore it on your sleeve, I would be thinking they don't care about transformation. They don't care about the plight of black people, the poor. They're just protecting the interests of the middle class, and they're arrogant, and they this and this. It's othering others. And if you're a member of the ANC, we're just thinking, hey, you only think this way. Perhaps you don't care about moving forward. Or if you're an EFF member. So we think in these silos, and we label those who belong to certain group of thoughts as others, as perhaps backwards and not as enlightened as we are. We forget the nuance that exists, that you could be, as an example, an ANC member, but have strong affinity to what AfriForum is doing, and agree with AfriForum on some issues. Because as human beings, we are so complex. It's not one hat fits all. It is not. And another example that I made to the producers earlier on is that in some instances, you find racists marrying across color lines. It doesn't make sense, at least to me. But those nuances and complexities are there. And to what extent are we allowing those cluster thinking, parochial school of thoughts to divide us? Because you'll find that we have more in common across ideological divides than what divides us. So that is there. And in South Africa, it's such a popular thing. We love othering individuals. If you don't agree with me, I automatically think that you're backwards, you're racist, and you are a sympathizer of the past. And perhaps if you were to say, listen, I prefer IFP over ANC, and I'm thinking, clearly they've got traditional thoughts about issues, and chances are it could be that this person is a traditionalist, and it could be that you disagree with a lot of African traditions, but you are still a member of the IFP. However, you think very little of cultural practices and whatever else. So those complexities are there, and I thought maybe we can ventilate that as well. But Anything else goes on 702 on an open line, 011-883-0702. And I was also reminded that on Friday, you preferred to talk about Gratitude Friday. What are you grateful for today? Something could have happened. Maybe you have a new boyfriend. You are in love. You are smiling. It could be that you got a new job. Yes, and after submitting so many CVs, someone invited you for an invite, and you just want to say, I'm happy, I'm grateful, thank you. I listen to Clement whenever he's doing the grateful feature, and I'm just thinking at times, it does so much. It does so much for your mood, for your day, when you wake up and you're saying, things could be terrible. I'm grateful. Maybe nothing major has happened in my life, but there's a roof over my head. I don't have to worry about what we are going to eat in the evening like many South Africans do. I don't have to worry about petrol money. I don't have to worry about this, that, or the other. What are you grateful for today? It could be that you recently graduated. Congratulations. It could be that you are promoted at work. It could be that you have your first client as a business that just opened up. I'd love to hear from you. 011-883-0702. John, you are in my neck of the woods in Roodepoort. Hey, Tada.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm free, John. How's it going with you, bud?
Good, man. I just wanted to say good luck, man, to Mamelodi Sundowns for tomorrow. I think the whole country's quiet.
Yeah. I'm one of those in that quiet choir.
I thought let's leave a bit of politics and then there was a bit of banter. And I'm grateful to be a Mamelodi Sundowns fan. Have a great day.
Hey, listen, before you escape so quickly, I wish we had faced you in the CAF finals, right? So that's why I'm quiet. That's why I'm not thrilled, because as a Pirates fan, I would have wanted it to be a major South African face-off, and it would have put us somewhere. But on a serious note, John, thank you so much. But I also wish you well, because you are not only representing Buyelo, you are representing the rest of us in South Africa. All the best, John.
Thank you.
All the best, John, in Roodepoort. I'll take your calls now on 011-883-0702. Abel, can we take some voice notes that I've been neglecting on 072-702-1702?
Hello, 702. I'm English. I grew up in South Africa, but I still believe that I am African. I grew up in this place, and I experienced similar things. We're all living in this country, and we all have certain things that we just know about. There is a culture here, even if we ignore what language you speak. That's my opinion. This is Josh from Pretoria.
Josh, I'm glad you called, and I'm glad you deposited your thoughts on that. And Josh is mainly responding to the call that I made. What makes you African? Today, as we will be celebrating Africa Day, truly what makes you African? I really want to know. And if I were to attempt responding to my own question, I'd say my love for this continent makes me African. It's my love. I genuinely love this place. And for me, it's not just a place, it's home. And it's the only home that we have. And I feel terrible when people want to mess up our home, because this is all that we have. And you cannot love this home without loving its people. Because just like that old age song, a house is not a home. Because if you don't love the people, this is just a house to you, it's not a home. But you have to love the people of Africa. You have to love what this place does for all of us. I challenge you to say that you are not African if you don't love Africans. And I'm not talking about color, by the way. If you don't love Africans, don't call yourself African. because Africans make Africa to be what it is. 0727021702. I have not been looking at your text messages. Maybe I should do that. Let's go straight to them. This one says, for me, being African is about the love I have for this incredible continent and its people. It's the warmth, resilience, and diversity that resonates deeply with me. Nia, sending that one. Howdy, I'm listening from Southall, London. If you're born and bred in Africa, you are African. I'm really homesick. Oh man, Greg. So why don't you come home? Is it work that takes you to London? Come home, man. Come home. It would be nice to have you home. And I'm just glad that you love this place as well. 011-883-0702.
Hi, Thabo. It's Mike here from Ivory Park. The issue of borderless Africa, it's a good idea, though. But looking at the continent's economies, if we were to implement that idea, the countries with the good economies will suffer the most. At the moment, as it's happening at the moment, South Africa, it's hosting a lot of African migrants. So until such time where other African countries improve economically, we should put that idea on ice. But it's a good thing, though. Thank you, Thabo.
Love that, Mike. Really, really, really love that. And keep those messages coming through on 0727021702. I would love to hear from you. Also your calls. I'll take your calls, Vinay, Sipo, and others. I'll grab your calls just after this. It's exactly 9:30.
Is 7:02.
25 minutes to 10 o'clock. Thabo in for Clement. You're on 702. Thanks for joining us. It's an open line. Whatever is on your mind goes at this point. Feel free to share things that are happening in your locality. And I would like to talk about everything else. I was just mentioning that what makes you African? What is it that makes you African right now? And not just South African, by the way. African, because we are a part of this beautiful continent. A lot of people, whenever they make their arguments about other parts of the continent, they would say, in Africa, this is what's happening. And you would be thinking, where are we as South Africa when you're saying in Africa? Right here. This is Africa. 011-883-0702. Vinay, you are giving us a call from Dunkeld. Hi, welcome. Good morning.
Hi, Thabo. I absolutely love the way you answer when people ask you, how are you? And you say, I'm free. I love that.
Thank you.
So for me, I've often asked myself the question, and a few years ago when I tried to join a prayer group in Pretoria of a whole lot of kick-ass, powerful African women, I was told, what makes you African, being of Indian origin? And my answer to that is I'm fifth generation South African and very proudly African. And the reason why I love Africa is because of the warmth of her people, the beautiful landscapes, and the homegrown hospitality. All of that seeps into your soul. So if I had to answer in a short answer, it's because I'm African in my soul.
Fantastic.
That's why I love Africa.
I love it very much. I love that, Vinay. So allow me to play devil's advocate, if you will. And yes. I'm just asking for purposes of understanding a bit more. So you mentioned that you are of Indian origin, right? Fifth generation yes. South African. Yes. Between the two, where's your affinity?
Sorry, where's my
affinity between South Africa and Africa and India? Because I would think that the older we grow, the more we are magnetized and attracted to our origins strongly, and some of your origins are rightly so in India. Do you feel a sense of nostalgia in India? Is there any sentiment that you hold very close to your heart for India?
I love the food. I love the traditions. I love the attire. But I am purebred African.
Fantastic.
And that's why I said it's in my soul.
Yes.
Because even though I understand I'm of Indian origin, I'm African first, I'm South African, and then I'm of Indian origin in that order.
Vinay, thanks for indulging me. Really appreciate it. And thanks for calling 011-883-0702.
Good morning, Thabo. Good morning to the 702 listeners. Thabo, I just want to say thank you for bringing the gratitude part of the show for today as well. And I just want to say I am so grateful this morning that I received my invitation for my graduation, which is going to be held on the 18th of July. I don't know how I'm feeling. I don't believe that I am here now. And I just want to say a big thank you to my employer for believing in me when I could not even believe myself, and also for paying for my fees. Yeah, man. Like, it's just a dream that I never thought it was possible.
Fabulous.
But today I can really say, yeah, I am here now, and it's possible for every child out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That is just so, so beautiful. That is so amazing. Grateful Friday, and they have it on the show every other Friday on the open line. You can call in and tell us what are you grateful for. There's something about being grateful that truly, truly matters. And we were just hearing that in a short while. All the best to you and congratulations. 011-883-0702. I would love to hear more from you.
Good morning, 702 land, and good morning, Thabo. You know, I think an open border policy in Africa could work fantastically. But I think on top of that, you would have to add restrictions on social programs and or a set of policies between countries to handle social programs for things like healthcare and grants and, those kinds of things, so that if, the borders are open and everyone can travel freely, but if you come to a hospital here, then the country of origin settles that bill if it has to be socially handled. Then that would work perfectly. Open trade relations would be fantastic. Product movement would be great. Workforces would be strengthened. But, you don't want your social programs to suffer because of an influx of people in your slightly more developed economies.
It's a very interesting one, isn't it? Because if we just open the borders, there would be a bit of chaos, and that has to be managed appropriately. We would need a very solid and strong program in place to facilitate for that. The likes of Muammar Gaddafi, who were pushing for an African currency, just like the euro. Perhaps it would be called the Afro or something else, a coin from Africa, an exchange mechanism that all African countries can use to trade with each other, silencing the guns in Africa, the intra-Africa trade. Those are some key questions that are bedeviling the continent right now. And of course, xenophobia is one of the issues that we have to deal with. And how do we achieve that? A united one Africa that can truly thrive given the divisions that we have. And many of them, by the way, without necessarily exhausting the past too much. They are based in our historical past. Africa is divided, as you would know. You'd have Francophone Africa, you have Anglophone Africa, and we fall under that a little bit. And you also have the Lusophone Africa. And those divisions have often propelled us to discriminate against each other. What better example than the Pan-African Parliament, where they can't even agree on the rotation of the presidency of that important institution, where some countries and where some regions want to hold on to power for as long as possible, where they can't even agree on the unity of the continent, and they are supposed to be leaders from all over the place, where they are divided according to those boundaries that I've just mentioned, and boundaries that were predetermined by colonizers, the Portuguese, the English, and the French as a result. So it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing that we then retract and retreat into those cocoons in order now to perpetuate colonialism ourselves without the colonizer this time around. So Africa is faced with some serious issues. 011-883-0702, and it is also Gratitude Friday. Before I break, let me just quickly read this text message. Hi, good morning, 702. I'm just grateful that I will be graduating next week. I'm the first in the family to graduate in a public university, thanks to people like Ntate Bonang and Mr. Malcolm for their support during my difficult times. I'm grateful. Which Malcolm are you referring to here? Is it the one who is the unofficial mayor of Sandton? Let us know. 011-883-0702.
702 after.
702
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
011-883-0702. What makes you African? Or it could be that you don't feel that you are African, and please share that with us as well. I'm not opposed to views that are contrary to mine. It could be that you feel that Africa has got a long way to go, and it could be that you want to dissect and point at the weaknesses that we have as a continent. It could be that you are asking a very interesting question that since independence in the 60s, for some countries at least, little development has come to the fore. And there would be those who argue that, of course, a number of European countries are strangling the development of Africa through the unending debt that various countries have to honor. You'd remember in some countries when colonizers left, they literally destroyed their infrastructure and said that we built this, you want us out, we are destroying everything and you need to start from the beginning. Some countries are still paying to date, huge amounts of money, and it's called debt to the former colonizers, and they have to also give those countries their minerals as a result. Quite unfortunate. But what makes you African? 011-883-0702. In a short while, we will speak to Crystal Odyssey, who is, of course, a correspondent that you know very well. And we are looking at May being Africa Month and Africa Day being just around the corner, this Sunday to be precise. And we thought we'd speak to 702's Africa's correspondent, Crystal Odyssey, just to discuss around Africa's economic resilience and global investment landscape. And Crystal is on the line right now. Let's go straight to her. Crystal, thanks for joining us. Welcome once again. And I don't know whether to say Happy Africa Month.
Yes. Hey, good morning, Thabo. It's actually the first time I get to chat to you about, of course, Africa, which I am very passionate about, and being an Afro optimist in these trying times. So yes, indeed, I think we should celebrate Africa every day, but I'm glad that at least May is set out for Africa Month, and then of course we're all celebrating Africa Day on Sunday. Do you know in some countries it's actually a public holiday?
Really? Really? Crystal, I didn't know that. I mean, I'm thrilled to speak to you too. I mean, I've been listening to you for a better part of my life, and your passion for the continent and your insights are always eye-opening, and they give us a perspective that we never saw altogether. And speaking of perspective, Crystal, to what extent is that lingering, the negative Africa perception amongst us? Is it still there? I mean, back in the time, you'd remember the pictures on CNN of little kids crying because of hunger, and that was the picture of Africa. Have we moved from there? Are we getting better? Are we seen in a greater light throughout the world?
I do think so. I mean, I always think of South Africa that firstly, we were so isolated from the rest of the continent, you know, and it was part of I feel, the kind of apartheid legacy that we were just looking internal. So for South Africans as a whole, we've had to step out of ourselves, getting to know the continent in its diversity, not just Southern Africa, East Africa, Central and West Africa. I think the world is also seeing Africa differently, Thabo, because we are rich in mineral resources and we have the people. And if there's going to be any growth taking place in this world, apart from China, it's going to happen in this continent, Thabo. So I do think there's been a lot of optimism, but we can't, of course, I can't run away from the challenges, Thabo. You see the headlines of Sudan, one of the saddest and longest conflicts that is there. We can't run away from the M23 rebels, you know, in Eastern Congo. So, of course, we have to be realistic. There are conflicts happening, but there's also other amazing things happening. And I think despite the challenging headwinds that we're seeing globally and geopolitically, different African countries are still thriving.
And where does it put us? I'm just wondering, is it possible to be an optimist, to be a great enthusiast of this continent, and yet still with sobriety reflect on its weaknesses and at times propelled by some of our own, Crystal?
Absolutely. So if we just look, Thabo, like around the economic growth, it's still Africa still is quite a growth kind of focus for the rest of the world, because we do have minerals and we also have a population, of course. And so if we just look at the economic indicators, so the World Bank, for instance, puts economic growth at 3.7%. The African Development Bank, much more optimistic, they're putting it at 4.3%. And they still say that we remain the world's second fastest growing region after Asia, with about 12 of the 20 fastest growing economies projected to be on the continent. So I don't think we can run away from that, and that there's different regions, whether it's West Africa, East, Central or Southern Africa, that offer real innovation and also opportunities, not only in the kind of critical minerals that we have, but also in its people and opportunities for different sectors to develop.
And speaking of which, investment is a buzzword right now in Africa, right? And the World Bank's private investment arm, I hear that they're planning to increase significantly investment in Africa. What are they saying about that? Because we do need investment.
Yes, we do. And so I think firstly, Thabo, back to your earlier point, last week there was the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire, and President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Paul Kagame from Rwanda were on the same platform. And the question of, you know, where is Africa at came up. And it was interesting listening what Paul Kagame has been saying. And he was saying, you know what? In essence, we should stop listening to the noise. Africa is an engine of growth. We need to focus on what do we have, where are the gaps. Yes, geopolitics are always going to change, but let's focus on what we can bring to the table. And I think that was so important, Thabo, because I often think that it's easy that Africa becomes this kind of punching bag for everyone, and yet, you know, there's all these kind of hub and opportunities that's happening. So yes, back to your question on the World Bank. So they've got a private investment arm, and that arm is saying, look, we are feeling actually quite optimistic, and we are increasing the International Finance Corporation, which is the IFC's investments in Africa. And so we're looking at about $14 billion in commitments. That's up from 23% from the previous year. And here we're looking at the investments would be in sectors across different sectors, but especially energy, digital infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing and business development. So here you have an outside arm saying, well, we're feeling optimistic. So what does that mean? We don't just want the World Bank Thabo, to come and say, here's money on the table. We also want other private sector companies, also government, to come in and say, well, here's money. We can also put it on the table.
Billboards are flagged with G20 and everything else. We had the president in his interaction in the Oval Office recently speaking about the G20 and asking President Trump to be there for the handover. Africa's place in the G20 and B20, why is that important, Crystal?
I think it's very important, Thabo, that it's the first time that an African country's actually got the G20 presidency. And again, we know there's been a lot of noise, but there's 18 other countries, Thabo, that is still part of the G20, and it's not just the US. I think firstly, we need to stop that noise and focus on, here's an opportunity for not only South Africa, but the African agenda to be part of it. And so I think that is first and foremost. So look, there's a lot happening. And Thabo, we're looking at more than 200 meetings taking place in different sectors, from telecommunications to health to corruption to investment, So there's a lot happening. And then, of course, there's a big Heads of State Summit. And so I think it matters for Africa because the African Union is also a member. And I think South Africa's theme, and the B20 in particular, inclusive growth and prosperity through global cooperation. So we see the key priorities, employment, education, and what we see in particular, it is the first time we're seeing business also getting involved and saying, look, here's a platform to discuss trade, investment, and other economic issues that influences the policy decision-making. And Thabo, yes, I've attended a lot of different meetings from African Development Bank, IMF, World Bank, and including the G20, which was the finance track and the foreign ministers track. And so, yes, of course, it's a lot of closed-door meetings. So even I think my challenge to the media is that we need to find the nuances of why does this matter? Why is it important? And it's often behind closed doors, informal discussions, Thabo, where other deals are going to see the light of day. So it really is just this opportunity that allows for South Africa and Africa to really highlight some of the strengths and, of course, promote its own role in the global economy.
We have to leave it at that, Crystal. I loved talking to you, and I love what you're doing for this continent and covering it and giving us fresh perspectives on this beautiful place that we all call home. I suppose the words to use would be those from Ingwapele Mudingwane, that wonderful poet who said, Africa my beginning, Africa my ending. Crystal, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Odison, 702 Africa correspondent.
Every time we're on the radio, we're not just talking.
We're turning words into actions.
Actions that change communities.
Actions that make a difference.
And every time you tune into 702,
You're not just listening to the radio. You're in conversation with us.
And your voice matters. You're on a journey with us, and every step we take counts.
It's these steps that not only help us grow as individuals, but also bring us together as a society.
Through the good times and the bad.
Every step gets us closer to the South Africa we want to be.
So keep walking with 702, and let's make this a journey to remember.
702.
Let's walk.